Is it better to write materials on my own, or is it better to co-write things and work with somebody else? Having to run your ideas past someone else all the time, that must take up a lot of time. But on the other hand, when you get stuck or you want to play around with ideas, at least you've got someone to talk to. And writing's pretty solitary, so working with someone else, well, it must be good, mustn't it? I've written materials on my own, I've written with co-writers, 2 or 3 people. It has its pros and cons. So I thought in this short video, we'd explore it by interviewing 2 writers who've worked together for a very long time. Vaughan Jones, Sue Kay, they're the authors of Inside Out, the book's Focus, and other things. In this video, I interview them about how they got together writing, why it works for them, and I try to find reasons why co-writing might not work, but I'm not very successful, as you'll see. Right, Sue, Vaughan, I'm not going to ask you to introduce yourselves because lots of people know you. You've written course books. What was the name of the first book you wrote together?
Inside Out.
Yes, that's what it was.
Okay. And your most recent title?
Focus, maybe, is that it?
Well, most recent is that Preparer.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
it's got a Polish name, so I can't give it to you. But it's...
That's a good start. You both can't agree on what the book was, and you don't actually know the name of it. Great, great. Anyway, I'm going to start with. I've been reading this book, which came out from Routledge recently, and there's an interesting chapter by Antonia Clare and J.J. Wilson. And they're talking about writing in tandem. So I thought I'd throw this out to you and see if it resonates at all. So one of them's written this, or they've both written it together. Writing in tandem allows us to complement each other's skill. One of us is more visually oriented, while the other is more literary. One is an avid proofreader, and the other is a big picture person. I wondered if the 2 of you were able to define yourself in sort of clear kind of roles in a similar way at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're a bit different from Antonia and JJ by the sounds of it. We do complement one another, I think, and that's why the partnership has worked for like 25 years. But well, in a nutshell, we work in a very organic and holistic way, whilst also, I think, playing to our strengths. So we both work on all parts of the book or the books, all parts of a unit, but I tend to write the texts and Vaughan tends to write the grammar and vocabulary. However, we work very closely together and, you know, thank goodness for emails and Skype, basically, because, you know, stuff goes backwards and forwards.
I'm very happy to come clean and admit that Sue is the writer in the relationship. And she finds it very easy and she's very, very good at it. So nearly all the original texts, listenings, things like that are written by Sue. I can write them, but there's absolutely no point because they're never as good as Sue and they take twice as long. So, I mean, people have asked us before many times how we write together, and my glib answer was always Sue writes the words and I colour in the pictures. It's not quite like that, but yeah, as she's already said, Sue said that we play to our strengths. My strength is not writing texts. My strength is possibly coming up with ideas. We often come up with really good ideas all simultaneously, which is impressive. But Sue does, once we've agreed on a rough idea for, let's say, a unit, we have this stage where Sue goes away and dirties the page, as she calls it. And then once we've got a few bits and bobs down, we just work at them, and they, as Sue said, they go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, and eventually we come out with something that we're happy to submit to the publisher. It is very organic. I know other writing relationships, writers will take, I'll take units 1, 3, 5, 7, whatever, and I'll take units 2, 4, 6, 8.
Yeah,
We're
we've
not
never
like that
worked
at
like
all.
that.
We've never worked like that. We work on everything together. Yeah, hopefully
I
something
also
comes
know,
up.
yeah, we also know some authors who sit in the same room and write together. We've never done that either, have we, Vaughan?
God, no.
Partly because we just get chatting and, you know, the time goes and then we think, oh God, oh, time to go home.
Yeah, the idea that I'd sit in a room and write with someone else in the room at the same time is just weird to me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's more the writing partnerships with people who are married to one another. Maybe they, you know, that's more normal for them to write in the same room.
Yeah, that's interesting. There was a question I had about that. I mean, a lot of the successful course series like Headway, Cutting Edge, Speak Out, they've all been these male-female author teams. And you've obviously have the same setup. Do you have a kind of view on why they tend to work well? Well,
Yeah, I just think it's the balance thing, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Vaughan's quite blokey. I'm quite girly. I think it's a good, aren't you? Aren't I?
Yes, probably.
I mean, I've worked on my own and I've worked with co-authors. I remember writing a grammar series with Kerry Jones and being really surprised at some of the text that Kerry chose and thought, God, on my own, I would have never chosen that text. And I don't know whether that was just gender or just different interests, but it was one of the advantages of co-writing. Certainly, you're getting a wider spread of interests, I think.
A wider spread of interest, yes, that's right. I mean, I don't know. There. If I think about sort of two blokes writing together or two women writing together, it doesn't strike me as unbalanced. I don't know. It just maybe it's just a coincidence. The way we got together happened reasonably by chance, anyway, didn't it, Vaughan?
It did, yeah.
Well, I wanted to go back to that, Sue, because I mean, you first published on your own. You published the reward packs, the resource packs, which lots of teachers still use and remember them. And you were writing that on your own. So why did you, at the end of that experience, you could have just said, well, I'm going to write course books on my own.
Yeah, well, so when I wrote the resource packs, I was working full-time. I was teaching full-time in a school in Oxford. And my role in the school was materials writer. So actually writing the resource pack, I didn't have a sort of life plan. My ambition wasn't to write for a publisher at the time. I was quite happy teaching. I loved teaching and I loved my role in the school. And so the reward resource packs felt like an extension of my work at school, actually. And I didn't really feel as if I was writing them on my own because I had the support of the teachers in the staff room. I tried everything out with the students and I had an amazing editor, Catherine Smith, who almost felt like a writing partner. But I never would have wanted to write on my own. I think first of all, I think it would be really boring. And secondly, back then, after I'd done the resource packs, I wouldn't have had the confidence to write a course book, for instance, on my own. And actually, if it hadn't have been for Vaughan, I never would have, our writing partnership never would have happened.
So Vaughan, Sue had started writing. What were you bringing then to?
Well, it's a good question. Bags of confidence, very little talent, and lots of exactly what happened. What was that I met Sue through my role as a Heinemann teacher trainer or promoter, really, a part of the marketing team for Heinemann, and everybody in Heinemann thought that back in the day, now it's Macmillan, of course, thought that the resource packs were absolutely fabulous. And we all wanted Sue to, and she gave such good talks and what have you, we always wanted to use Sue in our promotion. So I got to know Sue through that. And then personally, I was getting a bit disillusioned with the whole kind of commercial side of publishing, and thought I could do better. My route to publishing, the sort of commercial side of publishing was through teaching and teacher training, working for International House and what have you. And I quite wanted to get back to that side of things. And yeah, I mean, we came up with this idea that we might be able to write together. I mean, when you think back, I don't know what Sue saw in me at all, but
I thought it would be fun to write with you.
well, certainly, yes, so fun. But we did feel that we could do something together. We had very similar ideas about
Yes,
teaching.
there was
and
more to
writing.
it than fun. There was.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
We felt very much that we could bring something to the table, not that hadn't been done before, but one of our core principles is the idea of an emphasis on meaning and trying to get meaningful materials that make students exchange meanings in the classroom rather than just trot out perfectly formed present perfect sentences or whatever it was. So I think that was something that we felt strongly about, and several other things. But so there was an alignment of principles, if you like, of teaching principles, of pedagogy, of approaches to teaching. We're both very much from the sort of humanist era, Mario Rimvalucri and those sorts of people who influenced us in our early teaching careers. And the question was, well, would we be able to write together? And fortunately, we still are, so it must have worked. But I would say for what we've done, which was actually go straight in with a big course book, what I did bring was that confidence and that sort of vision, because I could see things from the more commercial angle and I could see things from the angle of the publisher. So I knew how we could present ourselves to the publisher. I knew how we could hopefully open doors and get signed up. That's probably what I brought in those early days. That's definitely pretty much all I had to offer.
But well, no, we had chatted a lot about what we thought was missing.
Yes.
In the course books we were using, and found that we were on the same wavelength. And when Vaughan said to me, well, are you going to write something else? I said, yes, I'd like to, but I don't want to do it on my own. And that's how we decided to try and write together.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've described a writing partnership that's very tied up with the development of a course book series and so on, and what you bring to it. From the point of view of, say, a teacher working on some material, maybe they're just creating a worksheet for a class they want to do. Can you see how it would work, two teachers writing material together? Would it work in the same way, or do you think what your experience is something quite different from that?
I mean, I think that does happen or used to happen anyway, in staff rooms. People would collaborate on putting out worksheets to be used in the class. Little committees. I remember when I worked for International House in San Sebastian, we had little committees trying to write things to supplement the course books that we were using, a bit in the same way as Sue produced all those works. You were supporting Headway, weren't you, at the time, Sue?
Yes, so the communicative activities that became the reward resource pack, I originally wrote because I felt as if Headway, which was the course we were using at the time, needed supplementing in that way.
But I'm not sure, just for in the scenario you put forward there, John, I'm not sure that, teachers just don't have time to unless they're forced to collaborate, which is the way it was with us in Sebastian. They don't really have time to get together to produce worksheets for their classroom. They just do them or don't do them themselves and get on with it, I think. So something where you step back and you're approaching a big course or a level of a course, that gives you the time to collaborate. But there's an awful lot of collaboration that goes on in schools.
The staff room, yeah,
definitely, yeah.
We've described the obvious advantages. I mean, have you ever, in your writing life together, have you ever hit a sort of a conflict issue or an obvious disadvantage, or moments when you thought it'd be quicker if I was doing this myself?
The times that we've had some conflict were when, well, for example, the publisher have tried to put us together with other people, possibly to speed us up. And, you know, it didn't work out. Possibly because Vaughan and I are so used to working in the way we work together. So I don't think we've never fallen out.
No, we genuinely haven't, which is impressive. I mean, they'll, you know, very occasionally there'll be instances where Sue will suggest a text or I will suggest a text and the other one would just say flat no, and we move on. So there are sometimes issues like that.
Oh, of course, there are disagreements.
There are disagreements and that sort of thing. But basically, no, most of the time, and I mean, it comes back to an advantage of working together when you are working with publishers, closely with publishers. And again, this comes back to my experience of having worked in-house. The publisher says no, i.e. can't be bothered possibly to spend the money to get a particular photo you want or a particular text you want or something like that. And that's sometimes been an issue, and we've fought hard in the past. I get the feeling we give up too easily these days, Sue. But back in the early days, we would fight really hard with the publisher to get a particular thing that we wanted, be it a song or a picture or whatever it was. And that sometimes soured, shall I say, the relationship with our publisher, but not our relationship. And as I said, it's been good then to be a team, facing the publisher rather than a single author.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine. I think when you commit to writing in a writing partnership, you both have to commit to working equally hard. I mean, I could imagine. You'd get pretty fed up if your writing partner wasn't putting in the same amount of effort as you. That has never been an issue with us. No. And if one of us has some other thing to do, the other one picks up the slack and so on. But it has to be really equal.
Yeah.
We take the same holidays.
Yeah, that has been a slight issue, hasn't it, Sue? Because me having billions of children, I've always had to take holidays during school holidays, whereas Sue hasn't had to do that, but has in a sense. So that became resented that a little bit to begin with, possibly.
Yes. No, at the beginning that's true, but now that I've got grandchildren who I want to have holidays with during school holidays, it's not an issue.
But I think to achieve that sort of equality is quite important, because I've worked in co-author teams, and they're not always. You don't always enter into them as equals. I mean, the very first sort of series I worked with, I was working with an author who was already well known, very well experienced, had already got established ways of working, and I think as if you like, the junior member in the writing team, you do feel like you do have to learn how you're going to work around the person and work the way they want to work. I don't mean that necessarily negative. I mean, I think that's true of all sorts of working situations like that, but you're quite lucky that you both came in and thought, okay, we're both going to work this way, and yes, like the partnership of equals. I don't think that always happens necessarily.
No, but I think that's one of the reasons why it works for us.
Mm. I mean, if you'd counted words on the page, Sue has definitely contributed more than I have. Then again, maybe I've done more promotion. I mean, it's the holistic approach to the whole thing. Yeah. We feel very, very comfortable with how much each of us is bringing to the table. And
at a very sort of practical level, if like one of you has written a page or a part of the course material, and then you sort of finish it for that bit and you send it over to the other person that day, what do? They insert their comments on it? How does the sort of giving each other feedback process actually work?
We talk to one another. We Skype.
Yeah.
Yes, we're much more likely to. That is what happens. We do send stuff to one another, but to discuss it, we Skype way back when we started working together with Inside Out. Our weekly meetings with our editors were actually face to face, weren't they, Vaughan?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it seems that seems such a thing of the past now. But
Even funnier was our inspirational first editor publisher, wonderful David, bless him.
the legendary David Riley.
Yeah, legendary David Riley. We had to meet him at Sue's because he was only half the force that he normally was if he wasn't smoking. So that tells you how far ago that is. We had to meet at Sue's so he could smoke, because when we met him at Macmillan or Heinemann, he couldn't smoke and he was next to useless. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's funny. It's funny, you know, to think that an awful lot came out of meetings with David, certainly, and meetings between Sue and myself, face-to-face stuff. And we've, even though obviously technology's carried on and we've had COVID and all those sorts of things, so a lot more of our meetings are virtual, if you like, but still that contact is important, and that discussion is important.
Project nowadays, how often are you meeting to talk to each other? Maybe on average once a day, once every 2 days?
What you mean on Skype?
Yeah, speaking face to face. I mean, when I co-write, I spend a lot of time. I'll write and I'll bounce it back, and somebody will insert comments, and we'll do it just remotely through email.
Yeah.
But we don't. I'm not sure that I talk that often face to face.
Well, I think we do, don't we?
We
Sue?
do a lot.
We do a lot, but then that's the way we've always worked. So it's been difficult to wean ourselves off that.
That's
Certainly
right.
on more recent projects, I think when we're interacting with third parties, yes, it's a lot more at a textual level, shoving in your comments, finding out what they think via sort of email and things like that. But Sue and I like to talk.
Yes, we do. Surprising we ever get any work done.
If we had a teacher who was writing materials here and they're working on their own, would you suggest that they naturally experiment with co-writing, or do you just think it's something that's happened well for you?
I think it, what is that thing you say, Vaughan? The sum is greater than the parts.
That's it. The whole is, what's the, I always forget that adage. What is it, John? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, or something like that.
Yeah.
If we've got it wrong, somebody will correct us in the comments.
Yeah, I think it's the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, I think.
Well, I know. I mean, have either of you ever written with anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've written with my brother and Peter Maggs and John Hurd. That actually went very well. Okay. But because I was still, because Vaughan was my writing partner, that was just a one-off.
And I'm currently writing on my own.
Yes.
I'm not enjoying it.
Okay.
Yes.
You've discovered that you are you're definitely a co-writer.
I think so. Yes. Yes.
Thanks very much to Vaughan and Sue for sharing their experience and insight into co-writing. If you liked the video, you can subscribe and keep following the channel Writing ELT Materials. And don't forget to click on the link to find out more about the course that Kath Billsborough and myself are running in 2023.